There we go. Hello, Nicole.
Hello, how are you?
Great. How are you on this fine Wednesday?
I was just scheduling something for Thursday, so I was about to say happy Thursday. So I appreciate you saying Wednesday to check me on what day we are in.
I know sometimes I still from COVID, I get lost in time. It just seems to be a
Yeah,
big blur sometimes. Well,
yeah.
thanks for joining us. And I'm excited to hear what you have to share in terms of being able to develop your leadership skills and really uplift and inspire your team members. I think it's something, even if we've had experience with it, it's always great to get a refresher. And if we haven't had experience with it, in particular, if we're entrepreneurs and maybe we haven't had to do that type of skill set professionally, it can present a little bit of a bump in the road and cause a little anxiety sometimes. So I'm excited to hear what you have to share in regards to that. And before you came on, I was just kind of sharing that you're a productivity coach. You're all about helping people clarify where they're headed and how they're leading and managing their team. So if there's anything that you want to add, feel free to open up with that.
No, that sounds pretty good. I do also leadership coaching, which is relevant to this conversation. And I was literally just on a coaching call with someone who's trying to figure out their style, their voice. What does that look like? So I think a lot of times people think productivity, they think leadership, so they think I'm creating spreadsheets and we're doing to-do lists and it's all logistics, and it's like it's the touchy-feely soft skills too. And I would say it's like 90% of that, 10% of write a to-do list and fill out a spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm. So how do you tap into that sort of touchy-feely side, if you will, and those soft skills?
Yeah, so it's definitely diving into what the person is trying to move towards. So what's the end goal here? Are they looking to develop a leadership style? Are they looking to get promoted? Are they looking to work better with their team? Is there a communication breakdown among the team? Are they trying to get a better relationship with their boss? Really trying to figure out it's almost like what the hard thing is, the meaning hard versus soft, the tangible piece. And then it's like backing into the soft stuff. How do you feel about that? How comfortable are you with that? On a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being, yeah, no problem. 1 being like, that gives me horrible anxiety. Where are you on the scale? And that's where those soft skills and more of the time is spent is getting people to a place where they have that clarity. They recognize, okay, here's what I got to do almost mentally before I have the conversation with my boss or talk to my team or whatever.
So it sounds like what you're saying is, let's say that you get presented with a new team, whether that be in a corporate setting or as an entrepreneur, you get presented with new team members, that the first thing you should do is not necessarily dive into the to-do list or the project that person is or a group of people are going to be tasked with, but really for you to take some time to pause and reflect on some of the things that you might be kind of pushing to the side because you don't feel as comfortable with those. Is that what you're saying? Like, like you said, giving it that scale 1 to 10, and let's say, the soft skills piece does put you at like an 8 or a 9, and you don't like the idea of having to, sort of build relationships or do the fluffy part of it, and you want to just dive into the details. If you found yourself in that situation, what would kind of be a next step for you to either get those soft skills or just be more open and vulnerable about, hey, this is new to me. Here's a space that I'm working on. Would you suggest that people actually come up front and be upfront about the things that maybe are giving them a little bit of hesitation, even with a new team member?
Yes, I'm actually so glad you said that. Like Brene Brown all day long, vulnerability. It's so it has such an impact to just share like these basic things. Like, yeah, I don't have the answer to that, or I have no idea how to do that, or I'm really struggling with this. Is anybody else? Like, those small statements can break down so many walls. And I think with a new team, there's a wall. Like, whether you built it or not, it's already there. New person, how are we going to connect? How are we going to communicate? How's this all going to work? And if you can start off on a foot of like, here's what I know, here's what I don't know, here's what I'm working on, and then kind of, I would like to hear what you know, what you don't know, what you'd like to work on. And suddenly it's a partnership, less of a, I'm looking down on you as a leader, I am your, boss, let me tell you how it is. It's more, let's work together, let's collaborate, let's learn from each other. So yes, 100% own what you're working on, what areas of opportunity you have, because again, as a leader, people are seeing that you're leading by example. Oh, so it's okay to like admit I don't know this. Wow, okay, that feels really good.
Yeah, and as a leader, you do want to know what your team actually knows and doesn't know. You don't really want them telling you that they can do something that they can't, because that puts the whole project behind. But that's really interesting, just to kind of move in from that space of vulnerability and not just offer that information, but for yourself, but to really engage the whole team and start to collaborate on. I think you named 3 things: what you know, what you don't know, and what you're working on. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yep.
I know. I wish I could remember this woman's name, but I get I believe it's put out by Fortune. It's a daily email called the Broadsheet, and it focuses on female leaders.
Okay.
And one of those daily reports, it was talking about a CEO who had come in to a new, she transferred over to a new company, and her first meeting with everyone was, hey, here's what's happened in my life recently. I've lost a parent. I've had this problem. I'm also really great at leading X, Y, and Z, but I just want to be upfront that these are like personal challenges that I'm dealing with as I'm coming into this professional challenge. And I thought that was really interesting in terms of vulnerability, because I think we want to look professional, we want to look pulled together. And we want, especially I think as women, sometimes we feel like we have to kind of overcompensate sometimes in the room in order to own that leadership position. And I thought it was very interesting that the way that she connected with people was just through her common humanity. It wasn't through being this perfect CEO. Yeah. It was through the parts of her that weren't working, spaces where she was struggling. So that was really interesting. And I think that's inspiring too. Part of the title of today's discussion was kind of uplifting and inspiring your team. So sometimes you don't have to come up with some fancy system or game or like activity to take your team through to inspire them. You can simply inspire them by sharing what's actually happening for you.
Yeah, that's so funny you bring that up, because I read a CEO of a company. I was reading his book, and he talked about this time period where I think he was going through some personal stuff with his family, and very distracted. There was stress at work, but also stress at home. So he had just a lot going on. And long story short, he basically discovered that everyone on his team was terrified of being fired. Like, they just saw whatever the outside expression of what he was going through as, we're being fired. Who's being fired? Someone's going to get let go. And finally, in almost like an accident encounter, one of them told him this, hey, like, I don't know if you know, but everyone's kind of freaked out that they're going to lose their jobs. And that changed his way of leading his team, because it was like, I don't want that. And here I am thinking, I can't share this, it's work. I can't share anything personal. Meanwhile, it's having this horrible effect of everyone's paranoid and looking for jobs that they think they're going to get fired. So I think I mean, there are extremes on both ends. So finding a balance of we're humans in a work setting, so we keep it professional, but hey, if something's going on and it's impacting you that much, there should be some sort of safe space to go into telling as much or as little as you want. Because again, you're the leader, people are looking to you. If you're a team member, you have other team members looking at you. Oh, it's okay to do that. And if you don't, it must not be okay to do that. You know, we're in a fishbowl. Like we're impacting how other people act by how we act.
Absolutely. And I think it's important that you say, you know, like some of us are more extroverted and willing to share more.
Yeah.
Introverted, and it's more difficult to share that. But so interesting for him to have that reflected back to him, that the way that he was handling the stress was actually creating a totally unknown scenario to him. And so I think it's important for us to consider that, you know, the way that we think we're being perceived isn't necessarily the way that we're being perceived. So having some ability to check in with your team in a way that you hopefully can get some honest or open responses, which can be really tricky because everyone's trying to protect themselves in that space. And so it is a very kind of delicate balance to be able to be vulnerable, be open without kind of spilling it all per se.
Yeah.
But to lead that in a way where your team feels like they can also share certain things that maybe, you know, traditionally wouldn't have been shared. And I think that's kind of coming to the forefront a little bit more, simply because there are more women in leadership roles and these soft skills are becoming more and more important, and men are starting to embrace their soft skills as well. Mm-hmm. Whereas maybe, you know, in the 80s we had the power suits and kind of the very masculine approach to, you know, just get it done and leave the emotions out of it. Mm-hmm. I think now it is much more acceptable, and it's actually helping people collaborate more when they're bringing those soft skills, when they're bringing their personal selves into the equation. Because yeah, like you said, we're human. We're not robots at work that like isolate off all of our personal situations and emotions. They come with us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very important. And you know, if you have a client who's going through a really tough personal situation and yet they're still trying to be effective leaders, is there anything, obviously it's probably dependent on the person, but do you have kind of a few tips or tools of things that they could do to sort of manage that? I was looking through your Instagram and I saw your thing of like, it was like a cute little reel where you're like, I'm not going to ask you to journal. Yeah. You're like, I'm not a coach that's going to ask you to journal. So are there other skills or tools that you invite your clients to use to kind of help them process things that are going on personally? And then in processing that, they become a more effective leader when they're more clear.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you can, I mean, you know, journaling is helpful. So that's something. I think having a support system is important, and it can be work related outside of work, meaning maybe you have someone who you've worked with in the past who's kind of become a mentor for you, or a friend who's in like a really high executive position, so you're always asking them for advice. You know, so I think it's okay to lean on different people in your support system for different things. So, you know, talking to someone externally, you know, because it might not be comfortable to really go into it at your current place of employment, finding people you can talk to externally, and that can be friends, that can be mentors, that can be coaches, that can be therapists, that can be a friend group. I mean, the list goes on. But I think getting an outlet in some form helps relieve some of that internally. And I think, you can also be transparent without going into detail, saying something like, I'm a little delayed on the assignment. I'm a little distracted. I appreciate the extra time, or I will have this to you, by next week. Just have a lot going on. I think the only thing with that is recognizing that may open the door to questions. Hope everything's okay. Like if you really don't want to be diving into it at all at work, it's leaning on that external support system is probably the biggest piece. And I put journaling in that category because sometimes it's just like, I need to get it out of me. Like it doesn't need to, no one needs to hear it. I just need to get it out of my head. And sometimes just writing it down, writing an email you're never going to send, a letter you're never going to mail, it can help.
Absolutely. I mean, it's something that helps me for sure. Just that kind of stream of consciousness, brain dump. I can put it in the shredder if I need to. But I think you're right. It's kind of just getting it out. And as you either articulate it verbally or in writing, that helps you sort of process it. So very important to have some sort of support outlet, like you're saying. Mm-hmm. And we got a note here from Unique Design Creations Gifts. She said, communication is key, even when it's hard. And I think that is so important. Like the difficult conversations are usually the ones where you're going to create the connection. You're going to create the trust that's going to serve the relationship and serve the team in the long run. So that was a great addition there.
Yes.
Anything else that you want to share with us before we kind of wrap it up in terms of leading new teams or team members?
The only thing, I'll finish up with this because you just brought up that great comment from Nancy about the communication is communication is also can just be in the form of asking questions. So I think if you're new, whether you're a team member and you have a new boss, you're a boss and you have a new team, whatever the structure, lead with questions. Find out before you go into, here's what I'm thinking, or here's what's going on. So what's working for you? What's not working? How do you feel like the team's working together? Scale of 1 to 10. What are you struggling with? What are your goals? What are you looking to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years? The more you can find out from others, I think as a new person joining a team, again, boss or team member, I think the better. And that is key for, again, opening the lines of communication. Like it's not easy, but asking a question really, again, it brings down those walls. Because so many of us love to talk and don't necessarily listen as much. So if we can pause, get some really good content in there, and then give that other person the space to really, no one's asked me what my development goals are for the next year. Like, I'd love to share that, or I'd love to think about it. So
yeah, absolutely. That is a great point. Open-ended questions, gather information, and not making assumptions up front are a great way to level the playing field, and then you can take it from there. So, well, this has been super helpful. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great.
So how can people get in touch with you if they are looking for clarity and support with their own leadership skills?
Yes, I love what you did there. So definitely on Instagram, you can direct message me at Find Clarity Here. My email is nicole@findclarityhere.com. My website is findclarityhere.com. You're getting the idea here. So I would say, via email or just direct message here is a great way to get in touch.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again for coming on. And I think we've all opened up to the idea of sharing things that may be difficult and really keeping those lines of communication open as part of your leadership soft skills. So thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Good to see you.
See you.
Great.
Bye.